Sarah Martinez had always trusted her older brother Miguel. When he asked her to help with what he called a business meeting at the old warehouse downtown, she didn't hesitate. She thought she was just there to look pretty and keep some investors happy while Miguel closed a deal. The warehouse smelled of rust and forgotten dreams. Broken windows let in thin streams of afternoon sunlight that danced with dust particles in the air. Miguel had told her to wear something nice, so she'd chosen her best blue dress and her mother's pearl earrings. She felt overdressed for such a gloomy place. "Just smile and be friendly," Miguel had said in the car. "These guys are a little rough around the edges, but they have money. Real money. This could change everything for our family." Sarah believed him. She always had. After their parents died in the car accident 3 years ago, Miguel had stepped up. He'd dropped out of college to work 2 jobs so she could finish high school. He'd made sure she had everything she needed, even when it meant he went without. She owed him everything. The men arrived exactly at 3 o'clock. There were 4 of them, all wearing expensive suits that seemed out of place in the crumbling warehouse. The leader was a tall man with silver hair and cold blue eyes. He introduced himself as Mr. Castellano, but something about the way he said it made Sarah's skin crawl. "So this is the famous sister," Mr. Castellano said, looking Sarah up and down like she was a piece of merchandise. "Miguel has told us so much about you." Sarah smiled politely, but inside she felt uncomfortable. Miguel had never mentioned talking about her to these people. She glanced at her brother, but he was avoiding her eyes, staring instead at his shoes. The meeting started normally enough. The men talked about shipping routes and profit margins. Sarah tried to follow along, but most of it went over her head. She sat quietly in a folding chair, occasionally nodding when someone looked her way. Then things started to change. Mr. Castellano's phone rang, and his face went dark as he answered. He spoke in rapid Spanish, his voice getting louder with each word. Sarah understood enough to know he was angry about something being late, about someone not keeping their word. When he hung up, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "It seems we have a problem," Mr. Castellano said, his cold eyes now focused entirely on Miguel. "Your friend Detective Morrison has been asking questions. Very specific questions about our operations." Sarah's heart skipped. Detective Morrison was Miguel's friend from high school. He'd been to their apartment for dinner just last month. "What did he have to do with any of this?" Miguel's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Danny doesn't know anything about our business." "Our business?" Mr. Castellano laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call betraying us? Is that what you call wearing a wire to our meetings?" The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Wire? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. Miguel wasn't just doing business with these men. He was working against them, with the police. 2 of Mr. Castellano's men moved closer to Miguel. Sarah could see the outline of guns under their jackets. Her brother raised his hands slowly, his face a mask of fear and regret. "Sarah has nothing to do with this," Miguel said quickly. "She doesn't know anything. Let her go." Mr. Castellano smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Sarah had ever seen. "Oh, but that's where you're wrong. Sarah here is going to be very useful to us." The pieces suddenly clicked together in Sarah's mind with horrible clarity. This wasn't a business meeting. Miguel hadn't brought her here to impress investors. He'd brought her here as insurance, as a way to protect himself if things went wrong. He'd used her as bait. The betrayal hit her harder than the physical danger. Her own brother, the person she trusted most in the world, had knowingly put her in harm's way. All those times he'd protected her, cared for her, sacrificed for her. Had any of it been real? "You used me," she whispered, staring at Miguel with tears in her eyes. Miguel couldn't meet her gaze. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I never thought it would go this far. I was trying to get out, to get us both out, but they—" "Enough!" Mr. Castellano cut him off. He nodded to his men, and they grabbed Miguel roughly, zip-tying his hands behind his back. "Your brother has been feeding information to the police for months. He thought he was so clever, recording our conversations, photographing our shipments." Sarah's mind reeled. While she'd been worrying about homework and college applications, Miguel had been living a double life. He'd been involved with criminals, dangerous people who could kill them both without a second thought. One of the men approached Sarah with zip ties, but Mr. Castellano held up a hand to stop him. "No, not her. Not yet. She's our ace in the hole." He pulled out his phone and started typing. "Detective Morrison thinks he's so smart. Thinks he has us cornered with his informant. Let's see how smart he feels when he knows we have the informant's little sister. Sarah felt sick. She understood now why Miguel had really brought her, not as bait for some business deal but as leverage against the police. If Detective Morrison tried to arrest these men, they'd threaten to hurt her. Miguel had known this might happen, and he'd brought her anyway. The warehouse felt smaller now, the shadows deeper. Sarah looked around desperately for an escape route, but Mr. Castellanos' men had positioned themselves between her and every exit. Even if she could run, where would she go? These weren't the kind of people who gave up easily. Miguel was crying now, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his sister. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I was trying to protect you. Protect me. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. You brought me here knowing this could happen. You used me as bait. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with betrayal and broken trust. Sarah had always believed that family meant everything, that blood was thicker than water. But sitting in that cold warehouse surrounded by dangerous men, she realized that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. Mr. Castellano finished his text message and smiled that terrible smile again. Now we wait, he said, and we see just how much Detective Morrison values the life of his friend's little sister. Detective Danny Morrison stared at the text message on his phone, reading it for the third time. The words made his blood run cold. We have Miguel's sister. Come alone to the old Miller warehouse. No backup, no tricks, or the girl dies. He'd been expecting something like this, but not involving Sarah, the sweet, innocent kid who always made him feel like family when he came over for dinner. Miguel's operation had been going too well, and Danny knew Castellanos' people would eventually catch on. 3 months ago, Miguel had walked into the police station looking like death. He'd gotten involved with Castellanos' drug operation through a friend, needing quick money for Sarah's medical bills when she'd been in the hospital with appendicitis. What started as moving small packages had quickly escalated into something much bigger and more dangerous. I want out, Miguel had told Danny that night, but they won't let me go. They say I know too much, so Danny had made a deal with him. Miguel would feed information to the police, help them build a case against Castellanos' entire network. In exchange, when the arrests went down, Miguel would get immunity and witness protection for both him and Sarah. It had been working perfectly. They'd identified key players, mapped out the distribution network, even found where Castellano kept his money. They were maybe 2 weeks away from having enough evidence to take down the whole operation, but somehow, Castellano had figured it out. Danny grabbed his keys and headed for his car, his mind racing. He should call for backup. He should follow protocol. But the message had been clear, come alone or Sarah dies. And Danny knew Castellano well enough to know he wasn't bluffing. The drive to the warehouse took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Danny cursing himself for not seeing this coming. He should have pulled Miguel out sooner. Should have gotten both siblings into protective custody the moment they'd started gathering evidence. But Miguel had insisted on staying. Sarah's got her senior year to finish, he'd said. She's got college applications out. I can't rip her whole life apart because of my mistakes. Now those mistakes might get her killed. The warehouse district was quiet in the late afternoon sun. Most of the buildings had been abandoned for years, leaving behind a maze of crumbling concrete and broken glass. Danny parked his car 2 blocks away and approached on foot, his service weapon ready but hidden. He could see movement in the windows of the Miller warehouse. At least 4 men, probably more. They'd chosen their location well. Multiple escape routes, no nearby buildings for police snipers, and far enough from the main road that gunshots wouldn't immediately draw attention. Danny's phone buzzed with another message. Walk through the front door. Hands visible, no weapons. He hesitated for a moment, then carefully removed his gun and placed it in his car's glove compartment. Going in unarmed was suicide, but he didn't see any other choice. Sarah's life depended on him playing by their rules, at least for now. The warehouse's front door was heavy steel, rusted at the hinges. Danny pushed it open and stepped inside, raising his hands to show they were empty. The interior was dimly lit, filled with the echoes of his footsteps. Detective Morrison, came Castellanos' voice from the shadows. So good of you to join us. As Danny's eyes adjusted to the light, he could make out the scene. Sarah sat in a folding chair in the center of the space, her hands zip-tied behind her back but otherwise unharmed. Miguel was on his knees nearby, blood trickling from his nose. 4 men with guns stood around them. "Let her go," Danny said immediately. "Your problem is with me and Miguel, not with her." Castellano stepped forward and Danny got his first good look at the man they'd been hunting for months. He was older than expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and expensive clothes, but his eyes were cold and calculating, the eyes of someone who'd killed before and would kill again without hesitation. "My problem, detective, is that you and your friend here have been very bad for business. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was stupid?" Danny kept his voice calm, professional. "I think you're a smart businessman who understands that hurting innocent people brings unwanted attention. Sarah has nothing to do with this." "Innocent?" Castellano laughed. "Her brother has been recording our conversations for months, photographing our operations, stealing from us. That makes her family. And family shares responsibility?" Sarah looked up at Danny with terrified eyes. She was trying to be brave, but he could see she was barely holding it together. This wasn't her world. She was just a high school kid who'd been dragged into something way over her head. Miguel raised his head, his voice cracked and desperate. "Danny, I'm sorry. I never thought they'd figure it out. I was so careful." "Not careful enough," Castellano said coldly. He nodded to one of his men who stepped forward and hit Miguel across the face with the butt of his gun. Sarah cried out as her brother fell sideways. "Stop it!" Danny stepped forward but immediately found 3 guns pointed at him. "You want to send a message, send it to me. Leave them out of it." Castellano smiled that cold smile. "Oh, but detective, they are the message. You see, I could just kill you all right here. But that wouldn't teach the right lesson to other potential informants, would it?" He walked over to Sarah, placing a hand on her shoulder. She flinched away from his touch but had nowhere to go. "Your friend Miguel here thought he was so clever, thought he could betray us and walk away clean. But there are always consequences. Always prices to pay." Danny's mind was racing, looking for options. The warehouse had multiple exits, but Castellano's men had them covered. Even if Danny could create a distraction, get Sarah and Miguel moving, they'd never make it out alive. "What do you want?" Danny asked. "I want my money back. I want the recordings Miguel made. I want the photographs. And I want you to walk away from this entire investigation. You know I can't do that." "Can't? Or won't?" Castellano's grip on Sarah's shoulder tightened. "Let me help you understand the stakes, detective. In about an hour, one of my associates is going to call me. If I don't answer, or if I give him the wrong code word, something very unfortunate is going to happen to Sarah's best friend, Jessica." Sarah's eyes went wide with new terror. "No, please. Jessica doesn't know anything about any of this." "She knows now," Castellano said matter-of-factly. "My men picked her up after school. She's somewhere safe for now, but her safety, like yours, depends entirely on Detective Morrison's cooperation." Danny felt the trap closing around them. Castellano had thought this through carefully. It wasn't enough to just threaten Sarah. He'd expanded the circle to include other innocent people. Even if Danny could somehow rescue Sarah and Miguel, Jessica would still be in danger. "Even if I wanted to walk away," Danny said, "I'm not the only one working this case. There are other detectives, federal agents. They won't stop just because I do." "Oh, but they will, because you're going to convince them too. You're going to tell them that Miguel was feeding you false information, that there's no case against me. You're going to make this whole investigation disappear." The plan was elegant and brutal. Force Danny to destroy his own case from the inside, using the lives of innocent people as leverage. And even if Danny agreed, there was no guarantee Castellano would let any of them live once he'd gotten what he wanted. Sarah was looking at him with desperate hope, believing that somehow Danny could fix this, could save them all. But Danny knew the truth. They were trapped, outgunned, and running out of options. Outside the warehouse, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the broken windows. Time was running out, and Danny still had no idea how to save the people who were counting on him. Sarah watched Danny's face change as Mr. Castellano explained his demands. The detective's jaw tightened and she could see him calculating options, looking for a way out that didn't exist. The warehouse felt like a tomb, filled with the smell of rust and the weight of impossible choices. "You have 30 minutes to decide, detective," Castellano said, checking his expensive watch. "After that, I make the call about the girl's friend and things become much more complicated." Sarah's mind kept going back to Jessica. Her best friend since 3rd grade, the girl who'd helped her through their parents' funeral, who stayed up late helping her with math homework. Jessica was probably scared and confused, wondering why she'd been taken, not understanding that her life now hung in the balance because of choices Sarah's brother had made. Miguel was still on his knees, blood from his broken nose staining his shirt. He kept trying to catch Sarah's eye, mouthing, "I'm sorry," over and over, but she couldn't look at him. The betrayal was still too fresh, too raw. Her own brother had brought her here knowing she might die. "There's something you should know about your informant," one of Castellano's men said suddenly. He was younger than the others, with nervous energy and fidgeting hands. Miguel wasn't just passing along information. He was skimming money from our shipments. Castellano's head snapped toward the man. "What?" "I've been tracking the books. Small amounts at first, but it adds up. Maybe 50,000 over the past 6 months. The temperature in the room seemed to drop even further. Sarah saw Miguel's face go white, and she knew it was true. Not only had he betrayed these dangerous people, but he'd been stealing from them too. "Is this true?" Castellano's voice was deadly quiet. Miguel's shoulders sagged in defeat. "I needed the money. Sarah's college applications, the fees, the deposits. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed." Sarah felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Her college money, the future she'd been so excited about, had been built on stolen blood money. Every application fee, every campus visit, every dream she'd had about getting out of their neighborhood had been paid for with drug money. "College?" she whispered. "Miguel, how could you?" "I was trying to give you a better life," Miguel said desperately. "You're so smart, Sarah. You deserve more than this neighborhood, more than our life. I just wanted to make sure you could go anywhere you wanted." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. Everything she'd believed about her life, her future, her brother's sacrifices, it was all built on lies. The college acceptance letters sitting on her desk at home suddenly felt dirty, tainted by the knowledge of how they'd been paid for. Castellano looked genuinely impressed by the scope of Miguel's betrayal. "So you were working for the police, stealing from us, and lying to your sister about all of it. You're quite the accomplished criminal, Miguel." Danny stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, whatever Miguel did, Sarah had nothing to do with it. She's innocent in all this." "Innocent?" Castellano pulled out a folder from his jacket and opened it. Inside were photographs, Sarah at school, at the library, walking home. "Your little girlfriend here has been living off our money for months. That makes her an accessory." The photos made Sarah's skin crawl. These people had been watching her, following her, documenting her daily routine while she'd lived her life completely unaware of the danger surrounding her. "She didn't know," Miguel said desperately. "I never told her anything. She thought the money came from my regular jobs." "Ignorance is not innocence," Castellano replied coldly. He walked over to Sarah, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something else, something that reminded her of hospitals and death. "But perhaps we can make a deal." He knelt down beside her chair, bringing his face level with hers. Up close, his blue eyes looked like ice, empty of any warmth or humanity. "Your brother owes me $50,000 plus interest. Let's call it 75,000. You can work it off." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Work it off how?" Castellano's smile was terrifying. "You're a pretty girl, Sarah, smart, young, innocent looking. There are people who pay very well for girls like you." The meaning hit her like a physical blow. Danny lunged forward, but 2 guns swung toward him immediately. "You sick bastard," Danny growled. "She's just a kid." "She's 18, Castellano said matter-of-factly. "Old enough to pay her family's debts." Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. Human trafficking. They were talking about selling her, using her body to pay for Miguel's crimes. The warehouse walls seemed to close in around her as the full horror of her situation became clear. "Please," Miguel was sobbing now. "Take me instead. Kill me, torture me, whatever you want. Just let her go." "You?" Castellano laughed. "What are you worth to me dead? Nothing. But your sister, properly managed, could earn back everything you stole and more." Sarah found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "I'll never cooperate. I'd rather die first." "Oh, you'll cooperate," Castellano said with certainty. "You see, we still have your friend Jessica, and if you don't do exactly what we tell you, she'll take your place. The choice is yours." The trap was perfect, Sarah realized. Even if she was willing to sacrifice herself, she couldn't sacrifice Jessica. Her best friend was innocent, had never done anything to deserve this fate. Whatever happened to Sarah, she had to protect Jessica. Danny was looking around the warehouse desperately, still trying to find some angle, some way to turn the situation around. But Sarah could see the defeat in his eyes. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. "What about the investigation?" Danny asked. "Even if I walk away, other people know about it." "Leave that to me," Castellano said. "Once Sarah starts working for us, we'll have all the leverage we need to make any investigation disappear." Amazing what people will do when someone they care about is in danger. Sarah understood now that this had never been just about Miguel's betrayal. Castellano had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. He'd let Miguel continue feeding information to the police because it gave him the perfect opportunity to trap not just a rogue informant, but a police detective as well. The young man who'd revealed Miguel's theft was pacing nervously near the windows. "Boss, we should move soon. Being here this long makes me nervous." "Patience," Castellano said. "Detective Morrison still has 15 minutes to make his choice." But Sarah knew there was no real choice. Danny couldn't sacrifice Jessica to save her, and she couldn't let her best friend suffer for her family's crimes. Castellano had thought of everything, planned for every contingency. The setting sun cast long shadows through the warehouse windows, painting everything in shades of red and orange. It felt like watching her old life die, Sarah thought. In a few minutes, everything she'd known, everything she'd dreamed of would be over. Miguel was still crying, still apologizing, but Sarah had stopped listening. Her brother's remorse meant nothing now. The damage was done, the choices made. All that remained was figuring out how to survive what came next. Outside, a car engine started somewhere in the distance. Sarah wondered if it was someone coming to help or just another person driving away from this cursed place, unknowing and safe in their ignorance of the horror happening just a few hundred yards away. Danny Morrison had been a cop for 12 years, had faced armed robbers and drug dealers, had been shot at and threatened more times than he could count. But he'd never felt as helpless as he did standing in that warehouse, watching Castellano destroy an innocent girl's life with calculated cruelty. 10 minutes. "Detective," Castellano announced, checking his watch again. "I hope you're using this time wisely." Danny was. While Castellano had been focused on terrorizing Sarah, Danny had been studying the warehouse layout, counting men, looking for weaknesses. He'd spotted something that might help, if he could create enough of a distraction. The nervous young man near the windows kept checking his phone, growing more agitated by the minute. Danny recognized the type. Low-level criminal, probably new to this kind of operation, not comfortable with kidnapping and trafficking. That kind of nervousness could be useful. "You know this isn't going to work," Danny said to Castellano, his voice calm and professional. "Too many people know about this investigation. My captain, federal agents, prosecutors. Making me disappear won't make the case go away." "Perhaps not immediately," Castellano agreed, "but it will certainly slow things down. And once we have proper leverage over a few key people, the investigation will quietly fade away. These things happen all the time, Detective. Witnesses disappear, evidence gets lost, cases fall apart." Sarah was staring at the floor, her shoulders shaking. Danny could see she was trying not to cry, trying to be brave, but the weight of her situation was crushing her. 18 years old and facing a future of unimaginable horror because her brother had made the wrong choices. Miguel looked up at Danny with desperate eyes. "There has to be something. Some way to fix this." "The only way to fix this," Castellano said coldly, "is for everyone to accept reality. Sarah works for me now. Detective Morrison walks away from his investigation, and you, Miguel, disappear forever. I'm feeling generous today, so I'll make it quick." The casual way he talked about murder sent a chill through the warehouse. This wasn't a man who killed in anger or passion. He was a businessman discussing the disposal of defective merchandise. Danny's phone buzzed with a text message. Castellano nodded for him to check it, probably expecting it to be from police asking about his whereabouts. Instead, the message was from his partner. "GPS shows you at the warehouse. Backup is 2 minutes out. Keep them talking." Danny felt a surge of hope quickly suppressed. His partner, Tony, had been tracking his phone, had probably figured out something was wrong when Danny hadn't checked in. But backup arriving could make things worse. Castellano might panic and start shooting. "My partner knows where I am," Danny said carefully. "If I don't report in soon, he'll come looking." "Let him come," Castellano said. "We'll be long gone by then. And if he gets too close, well, accidents happen." The nervous young man at the window suddenly went rigid. "Boss, we got cars coming. Multiple vehicles moving fast." Castellano's calm demeanor cracked slightly. How many? Looks like 6, maybe 7 cars. Could be cops. The warehouse erupted into controlled chaos. Castellano barked orders while his men took defensive positions. Danny saw his chance. With everyone focused on the approaching vehicles, security had loosened. Don't even think about it, Castellano warned, pointing his gun directly at Danny. One wrong move and the girl dies. But Sarah wasn't just sitting there anymore. The sound of approaching sirens had given her hope, and Danny could see her testing the zip ties binding her wrists. She was trying to work her hands free, trying to position herself to run if an opportunity presented itself. Miguel was doing the same, though his bonds were tighter. Blood from his broken nose had made his restraints slippery, and he was making progress loosening them. "Boss, they're surrounding the building," the nervous man reported. "We need to move now." Castellano made a quick calculation. "Take the girl and head for the back exit. Leave the others." 2 of his men moved towards Sarah, but Danny stepped between them. "You want her, you go through me." "Done," Castellano said and nodded to one of his men. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Danny felt the bullet graze his shoulder, spinning him around. He stayed on his feet, but the impact left his left arm numb and useless. "Danny!" Sarah screamed as blood soaked through his shirt. Through the pain, Danny saw Miguel finally work one hand free of his restraints. His friend lunged forward, tackling one of the men reaching for Sarah. They went down hard, Miguel fighting with desperate strength. The warehouse windows exploded inward as police flashbangs detonated. The brilliant light and deafening noise disoriented everyone. Danny, expecting the assault, had closed his eyes and covered his ears just in time. In the chaos that followed, everything happened at once. SWAT officers poured through multiple entrances, their tactical lights cutting through the smoky confusion. Castellano's men scattered, some returning fire, others running for exits that were already blocked. Sarah broke free from her chair and crawled toward the wall, staying low as bullets flew overhead. Miguel, still fighting with one of Castellano's men, was trying to reach her while dealing with his opponent. Danny, despite his wounded shoulder, tackled Castellano as the crime boss tried to escape. They went down together, rolling across the concrete floor as the battle raged around them. "Freeze, police!" The shouts came from every direction as officers secured the warehouse. The nervous young man threw down his weapon and surrendered immediately, hands high in the air. 2 others tried to fight their way out and were quickly overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. But in the confusion, Danny lost his grip on Castellano. The crime boss rolled away, pulled a backup pistol from an ankle holster and aimed it directly at Sarah. "Everyone stop," Castellano shouted. "Stop or the girl dies." The warehouse went silent except for the ringing in everyone's ears from the flashbangs. Every officer had a clear shot at Castellano, but he was using Sarah as a human shield, his gun pressed against her temple. "Let her go," Danny said, struggling to his feet. "It's over. You're surrounded. Killing her won't get you out of here." "Maybe not," Castellano agreed, "but it will make me feel better about losing everything." Sarah's eyes met Danny's across the warehouse. She was terrified but alert, and Danny could see her preparing to do something brave and probably stupid. "Don't," he mouthed silently. But Sarah had made up her mind. She'd been used as bait, terrorized and threatened with a fate worse than death. She was done being a victim. "You know what?" she said to Castellano, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'm tired of being afraid of you." Before anyone could react, Sarah drove her elbow hard into Castellano's ribs and threw herself sideways. The crime boss's shot went wide, and instantly a dozen police rifles opened fire. Castellano went down hard, his expensive suit torn and bloodied. He was still alive, but badly wounded, no longer a threat to anyone. Danny rushed to Sarah, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though she was shaking from adrenaline and shock. "Is it really over?" "It's over," Danny assured her, then looked around at the aftermath. "At least this part is." The hospital smelled of disinfectant and floor wax, a sharp contrast to the rust and fear that had filled the warehouse. Sarah sat in the emergency room, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, watching doctors work on Danny's shoulder wound. Her wrists were bandaged where the zip ties had cut into her skin, but the physical injuries were nothing compared to the emotional damage. Miguel sat beside her, his own bandages covering the cuts and bruises from his fight with Castellano's man. They hadn't spoken much since the rescue. Too much had been said, too many truths revealed for simple apologies to fix. "The doctors say Detective Morrison will be fine," a police officer told them. Bullet went clean through, missed everything important. He'll have his arm in a sling for a few weeks, but no permanent damage. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Danny had risked his life to save her, had taken a bullet meant for her. Meanwhile, her own brother had brought her to that warehouse knowing she might not come home. A federal agent approached them, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. "Sarah, I'm Agent Martinez with the FBI. I know you've been through hell today, but I need to ask you some questions while everything is still fresh." "Is Jessica okay?" Sarah asked immediately. That had been her first question when the police rescued her, and she'd been asking it every few minutes since. "Jessica is safe," Agent Martinez assured her. "We found her in a storage unit across town. She's scared but unharmed. She's with her parents now." The relief nearly made Sarah cry. At least one innocent person had come through this nightmare unscathed. "Now, Sarah, I need you to understand that this isn't over. Castellano's organization is big, with tentacles reaching into law enforcement, local government, even federal agencies. Today we cut off the head, but the body is still out there." Miguel looked up sharply. "What does that mean for Sarah?" "It means she's still in danger," Agent Martinez said bluntly. "Castellano has partners, people who will want revenge for his arrest. They know Sarah exists, know she's connected to the informant who helped bring them down." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She'd thought the nightmare was over, that she could go back to her normal life, finish senior year, go to college, but normal life was apparently no longer an option. "We're prepared to offer you both witness protection," Agent Martinez continued. "New identities, relocation, federal protection until we can dismantle the rest of the organization." "For how long?" Sarah asked. "Hard to say. Could be months, could be years. These operations take time to fully investigate and prosecute." Sarah stared at the hospital floor, trying to process what this meant. No senior prom, no graduation with her friends, no college in the fall. Her entire future had been stolen by her brother's choices. "What about Jessica?" Sarah asked. "Is she in danger too?" "Possibly. We're keeping surveillance on her family for now, but the main target is you, Sarah. You're the one they want to punish." Miguel reached for Sarah's hand, but she pulled away. She wasn't ready for his comfort, wasn't sure she'd ever be ready to forgive him. "I need some air," Sarah said, standing up abruptly. The hospital walls felt like they were closing in on her, just like the warehouse had. Agent Martinez nodded. "Don't go far. And stay where the officers can see you." Sarah walked to the hospital's main entrance, where large windows looked out onto the parking lot. Police cars were everywhere, their red and blue lights painting the evening in garish colors. Even here, surrounded by law enforcement, she didn't feel safe. Danny appeared beside her, his left arm in a sling, but otherwise looking much better than he had an hour ago. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know," Sarah answered honestly. "A few hours ago I was worried about my history test tomorrow. Now I'm being told I might need to disappear forever." "The witness protection program isn't forever," Danny said gently, "and it's not as bad as you might think. They'll help you finish school, get into college under your new identity. You can still have the future you wanted, just with a different name." Sarah laughed bitterly. "A different name, a different identity, a different life. That's not the same as the future I wanted, Danny. That's someone else's future." "But you'll be alive to have it," Danny pointed out. An hour ago that wasn't guaranteed. Through the window, Sarah could see more agents arriving. The parking lot was becoming a circus of law enforcement vehicles and media vans as news of Castellano's arrest spread. "They're going to want to interview you," Danny said, following her gaze. "Probably for hours. The FBI, local police, maybe federal prosecutors. Miguel's testimony is important, but yours could be crucial." "I don't know anything," Sarah protested. "I found out about all this at the same time you did. You know what Castellano said to you, what he threatened. That's evidence of human trafficking, which carries federal charges. Your testimony could help put him away for life." Sarah turned away from the window. "What if I don't want to testify? What if I just want to disappear and pretend none of this happened? Then other girls die," Danny said quietly. "Castellano's organization doesn't stop with him. They have dozens of girls already, Sarah. Girls your age, younger. If we don't shut them down completely, they just find a new leader and keep going." The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders. It wasn't enough that she'd survived. Now she was expected to help save others. The fairness of it made her angry. Miguel appeared in the hallway behind them, walking slowly like an old man. "Sarah, can we talk?" I don't think there's anything left to say, Sarah replied without turning around. Please, just give me 5 minutes. Danny stepped away, giving them privacy. Sarah reluctantly faced her brother, seeing him clearly for maybe the first time. Not the hero who'd raised her after their parents died. Not the big brother who'd sacrificed everything for her education. Just a man who'd made terrible choices and dragged her down with him. I know you hate me, Miguel began. I don't hate you, Sarah said tiredly. I don't know what I feel about you anymore. I never meant for any of this to happen. When I started working for Castellano, it was supposed to be temporary. Just enough money to get us through Sarah's hospital bills. But it wasn't temporary, was it? You kept going. You got deeper and deeper until you couldn't get out. Miguel nodded miserably. The money was so good, Sarah. More than I'd ever seen. And you needed so much. The medical bills, school supplies, clothes, food. I thought I could handle it. Thought I was smart enough to stay out of trouble. And when you realized you weren't, when you decided to become an informant, I was trying to find a way out for both of us. Danny promised witness protection, new lives where we'd be safe. Without asking me, Sarah pointed out, without telling me anything. You made all these decisions about my life without letting me choose. You were a kid, Miguel protested. You are a kid. It's my job to protect you. By using me as bait? By bringing me to that warehouse, knowing what might happen? Miguel's face crumpled. I thought they just wanted to meet you, to put a face to the name. I swear I didn't know they were planning to take you. Sarah studied her brother's face, trying to decide if she believed him. Part of her wanted to believe that the Miguel who'd raised her was still in there somewhere. But trust, once broken, was hard to repair. The FBI agent says we need new identities, Sarah said, that we can't ever come back here. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Miguel said quietly. This neighborhood, this life, there's not much here worth keeping. My friends are here. My school, my teachers, my college plans. Just because you're ready to throw away your old life doesn't mean I am. Agent Martinez appeared in the hallway. Sarah, we need to move you both to a safe location. There's been some chatter on social media about the arrest, and we can't risk Castellanos' people figuring out you're here. Where are we going? Sarah asked. Safe house about an hour from here. We'll finish the interviews there, away from the media and potential threats. Sarah looked out the window one more time at the city lights, wondering if she'd ever see them again. Then she followed Agent Martinez toward the back exit, where unmarked cars waited to take her to whatever came next. Miguel walked beside her, but the distance between them felt larger than ever. They might be in witness protection together, but Sarah wasn't sure they'd ever truly be family again. Too much had been broken, too many lies told, too much trust destroyed. The safe house would be the first stop in her new life, whatever that turned out to be. As they drove through the dark streets, Sarah pressed her face against the window, memorizing the familiar sights while she still could. The safe house was a modest 2-story home in a suburban neighborhood that looked like every other middle-class street in America. White picket fences, well-maintained lawns, and the kind of normalcy Sarah had once taken for granted. Now it felt like a movie set, artificial and temporary. Agent Martinez led them inside, where 2 other agents were waiting. The house was furnished but sterile, like a hotel room that someone had tried to make homey but failed. Family photos on the walls showed strangers, and Sarah wondered how many other people had hidden here, waiting for their old lives to officially end. You'll be safe here while we process everything, Agent Martinez explained. Full security detail, encrypted communications, the works. We need to debrief both of you thoroughly, and then we can start planning your relocation. Sarah sat on the couch, Miguel beside her, but careful to maintain distance. The gap between them felt like an ocean. Danny had come with them, his arm still in the sling but insisting he was fine to work. Let's start with what Castellano said to you in the warehouse, Agent Martinez began, setting up a recording device. Every detail you can remember, no matter how small. For the next 3 hours, Sarah relived the worst day of her life minute by minute. Every threat, every terrifying moment, every realization about her brother's double life. The agents took notes, asked follow-up questions, made her repeat certain parts until she thought she might scream. Miguel's interview was even longer. Years of working for Castellano, months of secretly recording conversations and gathering evidence. Sarah learned details about her brother's life that made her feel like she'd been living with a stranger. You recorded over 40 conversations, Agent Martinez said to Miguel. Photographed shipping manifests, memorized delivery schedules. That's incredibly dangerous work. I had to be thorough, Miguel replied. Danny said the case had to be airtight or Castellano would walk. And the money you took? Miguel's shame was visible. $53,000 over 6 months. I kept track of every dollar. I was going to pay it back somehow. 53,000, Sarah repeated, the number hitting her like a punch. That's more than most people make in a year, Miguel. I know. I know it was wrong. But Sarah's medical bills were drowning us, and then college expenses started piling up. I thought I could borrow it temporarily. Borrow? Sarah shook her head in disgust. You don't borrow from drug dealers, Miguel. You steal from them, and then they come for your family. The interviews wrapped up near midnight. Sarah was exhausted, emotionally drained, and no closer to forgiving her brother than she'd been hours earlier. The agents showed them to separate bedrooms upstairs, each with its own bathroom and television. Try to get some rest, Agent Martinez said. Tomorrow we start planning your new lives. Sarah lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle around her. Through the walls, she could hear Miguel pacing in the next room, probably unable to sleep either. Outside, she knew armed agents were watching every entrance, but she still didn't feel safe. Her phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, Sarah's heart jumped, thinking it might be Castellano's people somehow reaching her. Then she saw it was from Jessica. Are you okay? The news is saying crazy things about your brother and some drug dealers. My parents won't let me leave the house. Sarah stared at the message, unsure how to respond. What could she say? That her brother was an informant who'd stolen money from criminals? That she'd been kidnapped and nearly sold into human trafficking? That she might never see her best friend again? She settled for I'm safe. Can't talk about it yet. Will call when I can. Jessica's response came immediately. Whatever happened, we'll get through it. You're the strongest person I know. Sarah almost cried reading those words. Jessica still believed in her, still saw her as strong, not knowing that Sarah felt completely broken inside. Everything she'd thought she knew about her life, her family, her future, all of it had been built on lies and crime. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Sarah, it's Danny. She opened the door to find the detective looking as tired as she felt. His sling was gone, though he was still favoring his injured arm. Can't sleep either, he asked. Too much to think about. Danny nodded and leaned against the doorframe. I wanted to apologize. This whole operation was my responsibility. I should have protected you better. You saved my life, Sarah pointed out. You took a bullet for me. I think that counts as protection. I let Miguel bring you to that warehouse. I should have seen it coming. Sarah considered this. Miguel didn't tell you he was bringing me, did he? Danny shook his head. I had no idea until I got Castellano's text message. Then how is it your fault? Miguel made that choice on his own. Because I trusted him, because I believed he had better judgment than he actually did. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Danny was one of the few people in Sarah's life who hadn't betrayed her today, and that meant something. What happens now? Sarah asked. With witness protection, I mean. Do I get to choose where we go? To some extent. They'll give you options, different cities, different cover stories. You can finish high school, go to college. The federal government pays for everything until you're established in your new life. And Miguel? Danny's expression darkened slightly. Miguel's situation is more complicated. He committed serious crimes even if he was working with us. There will probably be charges, plea deals, time served. But his cooperation today will count for a lot. Sarah felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness hearing this. Part of her wanted Miguel to face consequences for his choices. But another part, the part that remembered him staying up all night when she had nightmares after their parents died, still cared about what happened to him. Will we be together? In witness protection? That depends on a lot of factors. Security concerns, your personal preferences, what kind of threats we're dealing with long term. The possibility that she might be separated from Miguel forever was both terrifying and oddly appealing. She was angry with him, felt betrayed and manipulated, but he was still the only family she had left. Danny, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you have family? People you'd sacrifice anything to protect? Danny smiled sadly. I have a daughter. She's about your age, actually. Lives with her mother in another state. What would you do if she was in danger because of something you'd done? I'd do whatever it took to keep her safe. Danny answered immediately. Then his expression grew thoughtful. But I'd like to think I'd be honest with her about it. Give her a choice in what happened next. That's the difference between you and Miguel, Sarah said. You treat your daughter like a person who deserves the truth. Miguel treated me like a child who needed to be protected from reality. He loves you, Danny said quietly. He made terrible choices, but they came from wanting to give you a better life. I know. That almost makes it worse. If he'd just been selfish, I could hate him completely. But knowing he destroyed our lives trying to save them, that's harder to deal with. Danny squeezed her shoulder with his good hand. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be another long day. After he left, Sarah returned to her bed but still couldn't sleep. Outside her window, she could see the suburban street bathed in moonlight. Normal houses where normal families lived normal lives. She wondered if she'd ever have that kind of normalcy again, or if she was destined to always be looking over her shoulder, waiting for the past to catch up with her. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the Denver airport, holding a boarding pass with a name that wasn't hers. Rebecca Sullivan, age 18, originally from Portland, Oregon. The identity felt as foreign as speaking a different language, but Agent Martinez had assured her she'd get used to it. The safe house period had been a blur of interviews, paperwork, and planning sessions. Sarah had learned about her new life in excruciating detail: Rebecca's childhood, her parents who died in a car accident when she was 15, her grandmother who'd raised her until her death the previous year. The fictional tragedy was uncomfortably close to Sarah's real life, which the agent said would make it easier to remember. Miguel stood beside her, but he was traveling under a different name to a different city. The decision to separate them had been mutual, though painful. Sarah needed space to figure out who she was without her brother's choices defining her life. Miguel needed to start over completely, away from the temptation to fall back into old patterns. Flight 447 to Seattle is now boarding, came the announcement over the airport speakers. Sarah's flight. Her new life waiting in a city she'd never seen, at a college she'd never heard of before 3 weeks ago. Rebecca Sullivan had been accepted to the University of Washington as a transfer student, her academic records carefully constructed by federal agents who specialized in creating new identities. You don't have to do this, Miguel said quietly. We could still ask them to place us together. Yes, I do, Sarah replied. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not cleaning up your mistakes. Miguel flinched at the harshness of her words, but he didn't argue. They'd had this conversation several times over the past weeks, and he'd finally accepted that Sarah needed distance from him to heal. Danny appeared beside them, looking official in his suit and tie. He'd been promoted to detective sergeant as a result of the Castellano case, and the FBI had asked him to consult on similar investigations across the country. Your handlers in Seattle are good people, he told Sarah. Agent Chen has been doing this for 15 years. She'll help you adjust. Sarah nodded, though she wondered if she'd ever truly adjust to being someone else. The past 3 weeks had been filled with intensive training on her new identity, but she still felt like she was playing a role in a movie she didn't want to be in. What about Castellano? She asked. Danny's expression hardened. Federal judge denied bail. He's facing life without parole on the trafficking charges alone, plus about 40 other felonies. Your testimony sealed the case. And his organization? 37 arrests so far, including 2 corrupt cops and a city councilman. It's going to take months to clean up the whole mess, but we broke their back. Sarah should have felt satisfied hearing this, but mostly she just felt tired. Justice was important, but it didn't undo the damage to her life. Didn't give her back the future she'd been planning. Final boarding call for Flight 447 to Seattle. Sarah picked up her single suitcase. Everything Rebecca Sullivan owned in the world fit in one bag. Agent Martinez had explained that bringing too much from her old life would be a security risk and make it harder to adapt to her new identity. I guess this is it, Sarah said, looking at Miguel one last time. Her brother's eyes were red with tears he was trying not to shed. Sarah, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. I know you're sorry, Sarah replied. I just don't know if that's enough. They hugged briefly, awkwardly, like strangers trying to comfort each other. Sarah could feel Miguel's desperation in the embrace, his need for forgiveness that she wasn't ready to give. Danny walked her to the gate, his presence both comforting and a reminder of everything she was leaving behind. You have my number, he said as they reached the boarding line. Encrypted phone, secure line. If you ever need anything, even just to talk, call me. What if I hate Seattle? What if I can't do this? Then you adapt. You survive. You find a way to build something good from the wreckage. Danny's voice was gentle but firm. You're stronger than you know, Sarah. You proved that in the warehouse. Sarah thought about that day, about the moment she'd decided to stop being a victim and fight back against Castellano. Maybe Danny was right. Maybe she was stronger than she'd realized. She boarded the plane and found her seat by the window. As the aircraft taxied toward the runway, she watched the airport growing smaller below. Somewhere in that maze of terminals, Miguel was boarding his own flight to Houston, where he'd start his new life as David Rodriguez, a community college student studying automotive repair. The plane lifted off, and Sarah pressed her face to the window as her old city fell away beneath the clouds. She'd lived there her entire life, had planned to return from college for holidays and summers. Now she might never see it again. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. Missing you. Hope you're safe wherever you are. Sarah smiled sadly and turned off the phone. Rebecca Sullivan didn't have a best friend named Jessica. She didn't have a brother who'd made terrible choices. She didn't have parents who'd died in a car accident when she was 15, but Rebecca had something Sarah had never had, a future that belonged entirely to her. No one else's crimes to atone for, no one else's debts to pay, no one else's choices limiting her options. As the plane climbed toward cruising altitude, Sarah closed her eyes and tried to imagine what that future might look like. College in Seattle, maybe studying law or criminal justice, turning her traumatic experience into something that could help other people. A career fighting the kind of criminals who'd destroyed her old life. Friends who knew her as Rebecca, who'd never know the scared girl who'd been used as bait in a warehouse. The flight attendant came by offering drinks. What can I get you, miss? For a split second, Sarah almost said her real name. Then she caught herself. Rebecca, she said firmly. My name is Rebecca. It was a small step, but it was the first one toward becoming the person she'd chosen to be rather than the victim circumstances had made her. The plane flew west toward the setting sun, carrying Rebecca Sullivan toward whatever came next. 3 months later, Rebecca was walking across the University of Washington campus when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Danny's secure number. How are you adjusting? He asked when she answered. Better than I expected, Rebecca replied, and realized it was true. She'd made friends, was getting good grades, had even joined the campus legal aid clinic. Some days I almost forget I used to be someone else. That's good. That's healthy. What about Miguel? Have you heard anything? He's doing well. Finished his GED, started college classes, stays out of trouble, checks in regularly with his handler. Rebecca felt a complex mix of emotions hearing this. She was glad Miguel was doing well, but she still wasn't ready to reach out to him directly. I've been thinking about what you said, she told Danny. About being stronger than I knew. And? You were right. I survived something that should have destroyed me. And I'm building something good from it. What kind of something? Rebecca looked around the campus at the students hurrying to classes, at the life she'd built for herself in a new city under a new name. I'm thinking about law school, she said, specializing in prosecuting human trafficking cases. Danny's voice was warm with pride. That's perfect. You'd be great at it. I want to help other girls who go through what I went through. Make sure people like Castellano never see daylight again. The world needs people like you, Rebecca. People who've seen the worst of humanity but still choose to fight for the best of it. After they hung up, Rebecca continued walking to her criminal justice class. She'd stopped looking over her shoulder weeks ago, had finally accepted that she was safe in her new life. The nightmares were fading, replaced by dreams of a future she was actively building rather than having thrust upon her. She thought about Sarah Martinez sometimes, the scared 18-year-old who'd been used as bait and lost everything. But that girl was gone, transformed by fire into someone stronger, someone who'd chosen her own path rather than having it chosen for her. Rebecca Sullivan had a bright future ahead of her, and for the first time since that day in the warehouse, she was excited to see what it would bring.